Okay, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we are going to be learning Maseches Bava Basra Daf Kufchav Daled and as well Daf Kufchav Hey Amud Aleph. We will get to the bottom line there on Kufchav Hey Amud Aleph, and then in Yirtzeh Hashem tomorrow we'll learn Kufchav Hey Amud Beis and Kufchav Vav, and then we'll be caught up. As mentioned, I won't be here this Shabbos or next. I have a sub already, Rabbi Handler's in. That should be fine. I have some other travel dates that are coming up. I'll keep you posted. But as of right now, only Shabbos is out. We are starting really in the middle of an analysis of a brisa on the bottom of Kuf Chav Gimel Amud Beis. We're 5 lines from the bottom. We had quoted a line in a brisa that reads like this: Hiniach lehen avihem. If a father left over as a Yerusha, para mucheres umuskeres, a para that was either mucheres, it was basically rented out with the renter paying X% of what the animal generates in proceeds, or umuskeres, or just rented out with a normal rental fee. And we said that if it was biyad acherem, or no, it wasn't biyad acherem, it was really still in the property of the family, o shahisa roa be'efer, v'yalda bechor, and then v'yalda, excuse me, comma, then bechor notel ba pishnai. In these cases, the bechor takes pishnai. So says the Gemara. Now, the Gemara is a little bothered by these two things being in the same category, namely that you have one where the para was rented out to somebody else, or the other where an animal was in the property of the family and it gave birth. In both cases, they get pishnayim. The Gemara is bothered by this. Hashta by mucheres umuskeres dela birshusa demara didhu kaima amris shakil. That even though it's not even in my rishus, it's in the other person's rishus, there we would say that the bechor takes pishnai, and the par has been rented out. So now the Karesh family doesn't have it, the Schwartz family has it, it's rented out, and we still say the bechor and the Karesh family gets pishnai. Then roa be'efer meboya, then in the same family, pasha, that should be an obvious kol shekain. So to this, the Gemara says, no, there's something unique going on here. There is something similar between an item, a para being rented out to someone else, and an item staying within the family, just being used by someone within the family. And the Gemara says on the bottom line of Kuf Chav Gimel Amud Beis as follows: Ma roa, just like a roa be'efer, shvacha de memela ka'asi, that when it's grazing, when it's a roa be'efer, it's out in the pastures and it's grazing, there's a shvacha de memela, there's an automatic free benefit that velo chasri b'mezona, you don't really pay for that. It's just the grass just regrows. So says the Gemara on the top of Kuf Chav Daled Amud Aleph, af mucheres umuskeres shvacha de memela ka'asi de lo chasri b'mezona. The same thing is true when my animal is rented out to somebody else, because the renter is going to feed that animal also not at a loss for me. So the Gemara says that these two things were grouped together, even though they are quite different in their fundamental aspects, but there are similarities in that they have a benefit, which is that there's no chisaron in food. So now the Gemara asks a question: money. Who is our brisa like? But there's a specific aspect of the last 20 lines of Gemara that we learned that the Gemara is asking about, and for this, I'm thankful to the Rashbam. The Rashbam is 20 lines down. First word on the line is Gemara, and then Dibra Maschil, money. The Gemara wants to know, money hach brisa. Who is the author of the brisa? Diktani, the brisa that teaches us the following: the notel bechor, v'shevach sheshvacho nechasim memela la'achar misas avian. Who is the author of a brisa that if posthumously, after the father who is being yorish to his son, after he dies, there is a benefit? Who says that goes to the child as pishnayim? Let's say that a father leaves an endowment fund to their child. When the father dies, it's at $1 million. It grows 8% every year. So now who gets that? Is it still divided in a pishnayim kind of a way? So the Gemara, our brisa does say that. So says the Gemara, back inside in the Gemara, Rebbe. That's the shita of Rebbe, that even posthumously, if there are gains on the investment on the Yerusha that the father left over, we still apply the rules of pishnayim. So says the Gemara, that's Rebbe. Let's see the machlokas in this brisa. So the Tanya, the first shita is not Rebbe. Ein bechor notel pishnayim b'shevach sheshvachu nechasim la'achar mitzas avim. According to the Tanakama, the Rabbanon, we don't give out proceeds, gains after the father's death. So if the father gave over a bank account, an endowment fund, an investment fund that had $1 million in it, whatever the amount was on the day of the death, that's where we apply the rules of Pishnayim. But if it gains annually 8%, so that we don't say is Pishnayim dollars. The kids get it, but it's equal division between the Bechor and the Pasha. There's no rules of Pishnayim in such a case. Rebbe argues, and this is where we see that Rebbe is like the Brisa. Rebbe over here on the top of Kuf Chav Daled Amud Aleph is like the Brisa from the bottom of Kuf Chav Gimel Amud Beis. Rebbe Omer Ani, Bechor notel Pishnayim b'shevach sheshvachu nechasim la'achar misas abiyim. If that investment account that a father gave over as a Yerusha grows posthumously, then that money is still divided in a Pishnayim 2x to x type of ratio between the Bechor and the Pasha, between the oldest child and the rest of the boys. Aval, if the reason why that money grew wasn't automatic, Aval, lo b'shevach shehishbichu yisomim la'achar misas avim. If the yisomim were the ones who caused for the increase in the fund, again, we're just using this as a mashal, then it's not Pishnayim. So let's talk about two examples. One is that the father sets up a fund for the kids and it gains 8% annually in the stock market. That means that on $100 every year, they gain $8. So if it's automatic, Rebbe says the 8% is treated like Pishnayim. So the oldest is going to get 2x, the youngest is going to get x, approximately $2.75 for the youngest, and all the rest, the older boy is going to get the rest of the money. However, if the reason why that fund grew was because one of the kids invested the money on his own and it wasn't automatic, it wasn't what the father set up, the kids intervened, then we don't apply the rules of Pishnayim. That's the distinction that Rebbe wants to make.
Holding a piece of land and then they're selling the payros.
So that's if the fruits grow on their own and they're not doing anything, the rain comes, the fruits grow. So then Rebbe would say, no problem, that's Pishnayim worthy. However, if they're dropping fertilizer, they're watering the grass, and they're working, so then that's not the father's Yerusha anymore. You've intervened. You've intervened.
My question is more along the lines. You gave the example of $1 million.
Yes.
Why isn't that distributed? And then it's each person's own thing.
I'm making up this example as we go along, but let's say that they have an annual distribution. Let's say that they do that. The annual distribution is 2x and x. Let's say they agree we're not touching the principal, whatever the Yerusha is. So it's always 2x and x, and even forever, every year, years after the father died, 8%, 2x and x. If it's automatic. But if the reason why the fund grew is because one of the kids is good in the stock market and he started investing that money in a strategic way, then there's no Pishnayim anymore on the benefits because someone intervened on the father's Yerusha. And the Gemara adds a couple of extra pieces in this brisa. We're a third of the way down on Kuf Chav Daled Amud Aleph. Yarshu Shtar Chov. Let's say that they inherited a Shtar Chov. The father who died had a document that said, you third party owe me $1 million. And the money doesn't come in yet. The kids just have the shtar chov. They don't have the money. What's the din? Bechor notel pishnayim. Why? Well, there's a svara that it's any money that is out to be collected, it's as if it was collected. So even though the cash isn't in hand, but that document is representative of the cash. And as part of the Yerusha, they said, this IOU is a biggie. Don't lose it. So therefore, you get Pishnayim. Yatsa alehen shtar chov, bechor no sein Pishnayim. Let's say that after the father dies, someone comes to the estate and they say, hey kids, I'm so sorry that your father passed away, but I'm the bearer of bad news. Here's a document. You owe me $1 million. So here's amazing. Yes, the bechor got Pishnayim. But if they now have to pay out a chov from the father after the father's dead, the bechor has to pay two portions, a double portion. It's not just in receiving, it's also in paying out the father. It's a two-way street. That's why you want to, before you take your Pishnayim, you want to know what kind of father you had. Did he pay all of his bills? Are the collection agencies going to be off the hook? Because if you get pishnayim from your father who's broke, but now you say you took your 2x, but now all the collectors are there, they're knocking on your door. Oh, you're gonna
more than what you took in.
Yeah. That's why the next line of the Bryce is here, which says, "V'imamar eini nosein ve'eini notel rishoy." A person can say, it's not worth it for me to be pishnayim, because what I'm gaining on the Yerusha side, I'm losing on the Chov side. I'm out. Rishoy, you're allowed to do that. Why? Because exactly what you said. That's not fair. The Torah can't be matzrich the Bechor to take pishnayim, because if he takes pishnayim, it could be a net loss very quickly. You hear about these things all the time. A lot of people are in collections. They have debtors. They have people who are just poor business acumen, and they have millions of dollars in chobos. And then the father, Rahman al-San, the father dies. So the kid takes pishnayim of the million in the bank, but the dad owes $50 million. So the kid's like, look, I love my dad, but I am not playing this game. This is not fair. That's why the Brisa concludes, the Imamar Eini no saying the Eini no tell. It really should be the other way around. I think that's the correction here. It should be Eini no tell the Eini no saying, yes, because no saying should be right after you receive. So that's why the Gemara says, Rishai, you're allowed to pater yourself from being the Bechor in this way, which is fascinating, because it's a right in the Torah. It's not a chiyuv. It's a right to get pishnayim. It's not a chiyuv to take pishnayim. Good. Now the Gemara is going to analyze this brisa of Rebbe. Remember, we saw two shitas. Shita number one in the brisa, the Rabbanon, were of the opinion that automatic shvach is not worthy of pishnayim, and Rebbe says automatic shvach is worthy of pishnayim. Let's get into the weeds here. Why do each of these shitas hold the way that they do? My tamayu de Rabbanon. Why does the Tanakama of the Brisa hold 3 lines down that Ein Bechor Notel Pishnayim B'Shevach? So he says, because it's a pasuk in Chumash, Amar Kra, Laseis Lo Pishnayim. There's a Nesina. Laseis means to give. Look at this. Matana Karya Rachmana. The Torah refers to Pishnayim as a gift, as a matana. Ma matana adamatya liyadei. Until the matana is in your hand, it's not yours. So af chelik bechora adamatya liyadei. So says the Gemara, you can't tell me that anything posthumously is going to be pishnayim, because if the Torah says laseis, that it's a gift, it's a matana, well, matana has to be in your hand for the transaction to be final, and therefore pishnayim has to be in your hands to be final. Therefore, there's no such thing as pishnayim on a posthumous gain. It's impossible, because pishnayim is similar to a matana. Mashain came to Rebbe Omer. He has a different svara. Rebbe, who says that you can gain posthumously, he says, Rebbe Omer, Omar Krap Pishnayim, Makish Chelek Bechora Lechelek Pasha. The Gemara says we're not comparing Pishnayim to a matana. We're comparing the Chelek of the Bechor and the Chelek of the Pashut. Ma Chelek Pashut Afal Gav de la Mata Liyadeh. We know, of course, that a Pashut is going to be getting his portion in due time, even if not today. But he's going to get his money. We have to liquidate the accounts. The father just died. They haven't done the burial yet. It's going to take time, whatever. The same thing is going to be true about posthumous gains. That even after the father dies, Rebbe holds, don't worry, we are still able to charge or to give pishnayim, because pishnayim is allowed to be posthumous. No problem at all. Now, how do the Rabbanan deal with the pasuk of Rebbe, and how does Rebbe deal with the pasuk of the Rabbanan? We're 2/3 of the way down, a little bit more, 8 lines from the bottom. The Gemara says, "I the Rabbanan the Rabbanan nami haksi pishnayim." What are you going to do with the pasuk that Rebbe used? They said, no, hahu lemeis v'lei achad mitzvah. They say that when the pasuk says pishnayim, that's not to teach me that we compare a Bechor and a Pashut, and therefore we allow for posthumous gains to be Pishnayim. But rather, the words Pishnayim teach us that it should be L'meis V'lei Achad Metzra, that we can force the brother to take Pishnayim from one spot to not break up other people's fields. The Rebbe Nami Haksiv Laseislo. Rebbe, what do you do with the pasuk of Laseislo that indicated, according at least to the Rabbanon, that Pishnayim is similar to a Matana? So says the Gemara, Hahu, that pasuk of Laseis Lo is She'im Amar Eini Notel Ve'eini Nosein Rishoy. That he is, that's the heter of a son saying, I'd rather not take from the Pishnayim. Thank you for your wonderful gift. You gave me a $100 Yerusha and a $100 million set of chovos. I'm not interested in Pishnayim. That doesn't help me because I'm going to lose my finances like crazy here. It's not worth it. So that's why Rebbe says it's based on the pasuk. So this brisa clarifies these two distinct shitas. The shita of the Rabbanon, that if the bank account grows after the father dies, the Rabbanon hold we do not allow for Pishnayim. Masha'en Ken, according to Rebbe, that even though the father died, but the gains after his death are still going to be in the category of Pishnayim, and the Gemara explains away the psukim, no problem at all. And Amar Rav Papa, the Gemara qualifies and limits where this machlokes takes place. It's not always true. Amar Rav Papa, if there was a dikla, a palm tree, v'alim, and it got stronger, it was planted as a sapling, and the girth of the tree was 5 inches, and now it's 55 inches. It says the Gemara, or ara v'asik sirton, or there was land and then it got flooded by water, and now that it's flooded by water, it grows more. The kule alma lo pligi de shakil. Everyone agrees in those cases that there's pishnayim there. That's not what the machlokes Rebbe and the Rabbanon is about. Ki pligi b'chafura v'hava shuvle. If you have a case scenario where there are stalks, but they really aren't yet fully grown, or shlufefe v'havu tamre, or you see the blossoms of a tree, like the flowers that precede the fruit, there we have a machlokes. The machlokes is the mar savar shivcha de memela. Some say that a blossom going to a tamre, to a date, is normal, and some say no. The umar savar that ishtane, no, it's a different thing now, even though it happened all naturally. If you're going to say the girth of the tree on day one and the girth of the tree on year one is different, that's normal. But when you compare the blossom to the resulting date, those are totally different things. So maybe that's a machlokas as to how we understand this machlokas. So how do we paskin the Maisa? Do we paskin like Rebbe to say that we allow for Pishnayim even posthumously for automatic gains? Or do we paskin like the Rabbanan that we do not allow for Pishnayim? So the Gemara here has a lengthy machlokas as to how we paskin, and we'll see shitas lekanu lekan. Last line of Kuf Chav Daled Amid Aleph. Amar Rabba Bar Chana Amar Reb Chia. Asa kedivrei Rebbe Asa kedivrei Chachamim Asa. Whatever you do, you do. It almost seems arbitrary, which is very non-halachic. Why is it that this is the case? So says the Gemara explaining this shita on the top of Kuf Chav Daled Amid Beis, misafka le, if the following is true. We know in Shas, and we saw this in Maseches Eruvin, as the Rashbam reminds us, halacha kerebi mechavero, velo mechavero. Whenever Rebbe is having a one-on-one machlokes, we always paskin like Rebbe. However, whenever a Rebbe is having a machlokes with a Rabbim, velo mechavero, this is where the letter Yud comes in. Rebbe against Chavero, Rebbe always wins. Rebbe against Chaverov, so then Rebbe potentially loses. So there we had a machlokas. Do we say that that's true? Oh, Dilma, or it doesn't say Dilma, sorry. Oh, do we say halacha kerebi mechavero? Really, in a one-on-one he wins. Ve'afilu mechavero, even Rebbe against the masses. So the Gemara says over here, the reason why the shita on the bottom of Kuf Chav Daled Amud Aleph, Rabba Bar Chana Amar Reb Chia said, do whatever you like. It's not really do whatever you like, but it's like whichever one you chose, you can't really go wrong. That's because he's not sure if we say, because what's our machlokes from the Brisa, from the top of, it's one against many. It's Rebbe against the Rabbanon. So he's not sure how we paskin in Eruvin. So therefore he's not sure how we paskin over here. And Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Nachman says, and I'm going to add in these words here carefully, only in the name of Rav, because Rav Nachman doesn't agree with Rav. What does Rav Nachman say in the name of Rav? Aser lasos kedivrei Rebbe. He says, no, you cannot paskin like Rebbe because Yachid v'Rabim halacha kerabim, because he holds that we do have clarity from the Sugya and Eruvin. Kasavar halacha kerebi mechavero v'lo mechavero. When do we paskin like Rebbe? Only when it's one-on-one, but not when it's Yachid v'Rabim. And our brisa is Rebbe against the Rabbanon. Therefore, you're not allowed to hold like Rebbe. Halacha kerebi mechavero v'lo mechavero. Rav Nachman didei, Rav Nachman himself, he disagreed with his Rebbe. I don't know how that works, by the way. I don't know. That's for another conversation. What did he say? Omar, muter lasos kedivrei Rebbe. I disagree with Rav. You are allowed to do like Rebbe. What does that mean? Kasavar halacha kerebi mechavero ve'afilu mechavero. So here what we're seeing is the outcome of a lack of clarity in the sugya of Eruvin. We're just not sure how we held in that sugya. Do we say in a one-on-one Rebbe wins and in a one against many Rebbe wins, or no? And another shita, Amar Rava, Aser la'asos kedivrei Rebbe, v'im asa asui. This is the most confusing shita. You're not allowed to do like Rebbe, but if you did do like Rebbe, it would count. Namely, if you did give pishnayim to a bechor for shvach that happened after the death of a father, he says you should not do that. It is aser. But if you did that aser thing, halachically the mechanism still works, and the bechor can keep pishnayim. What does he hold? Kasavar matin itmar. He's of the opinion that we are leaning in that direction. There's svaras lakan, again, a lack of clarity. If we were learning properly with Rishonim, we would go find an Eruvin, open it, and learn up the sugya properly to see how difficult that sugya is over there, and to see the snowball effect of having a lack of clarity. This reminds me of the mezuzah sugya, where some shitas hold that it should be horizontal, some shitas hold that it should be vertical. We almost never do this in halacha. We compromise and we put it on an angle. That's very rare in halacha. We did it for the sake of shalom, whatever the backstory is. But here we pasha don't know how we paskin. It's a slew. There are so many examples. That's probably the worst example I could give because there we actually had a shalom dika outcome. Here we really don't know what to do. So that's what we would have done. We would have opened the sugya.
That's where you combine it.
Correct.
This is one.
This is
they're mutually exclusive.
correct. Well, I mean, those are also
Only
mutually
that's
exclusive. It's also mutually exclusive. I did a bris in someone's house, and they had a mezuzah on the wrong angle, on the wrong doorpost, with a treif cloth.
Part of no angle, by the way.
No, they're perfectly straight. Though these people were not from at all, and they had like literal paper. Like, forget, it was totally not kosher. So I told them, I said, by the way, I know this is not why I'm here, but once I'm here, I care about you. I have a phone number for you. I'd be happy to send you a cloth for your. So I like measured and we were in touch. They ended up not wanting a new cloth, whatever, but their mezuzah wasn't kosher. So there, and this happened at a bris recently also. I was in their house and they had their mezuzah tilted the wrong way and on the wrong doorpost. A lot of amaratzos. Okay. Next, Tani, the Gemara says we have a brisa. Tani Reb Nachman b'she'ar sifrei debei Rav. What is that? She'ar sifrei debei Rav is the sifri. So it's a collection of midrashim. Rav was the earliest of the Amoraim and or the latest of the Tanoim. So it's a very early publishing. And let's see what he said about our machlokas between Rebbe and the Rabbanan. Because remember, Rav was a Talmud of Rebbe. So let's see what happened. There in the Sifri it says, "B'chol asher yimatzei lo." This pasuk is talking about pishnayim. The pasuk says, "Ki es habachor ben asnua yakir laseis lo pishnayim." B'chol asher yimatzei lo, yehu reishi sono lo mishpat habechora. Prat l'shvach sheishbichu yorshin la'achar misa savin. He says, however, this comes to exclude the shvach that the yorshin caused. Again, not miri de memela. But if the yorshin caused for an enhancement of, let's say, that investment account, that's not pishnayim. Aval shevach sheshavcho nechasim on their own, la'achar misa savi, and then shakil money, that is obviously Rebbe. That's a party line. Rab is quoting his Rebbe, and it seems to fit perfectly. But Tini Rami Bar Chama b'shar sifrei debei Rab. Rami Bar Chama found in the Sifri, he found another shita that was the opposite. The pasuk says, "B'chol asher yimatzei lo." Prat, to exclude what? This comes to preclude the automatic nechasim, where he says there is no pishnayim there. And all the more so if the gains were because of the yisomim of the children of the yoresh, of the father, where the children were involved. Pashut that doesn't work. Well, money, this is obviously Rabbanan. And the Gemara continues with a number of other cases. What this, I believe, why the Sifri was brought here was to show you that we were still unclear, even after Rebbe died, we were really unclear continuously from the very beginning as to how we paskin. So how do we paskin in Shulchan Aruch on this? So if we look back at the original Shitas, you'll see that the vote is on the first sheet of the Rabbanon, which means that if a father leaves an investment account, yes, the kids get the Yerusha. There's no one else to give it to, but there's no Pishnayim. So if a father leaves the Yerusha account with $1 million and it grows 10% a year, $100,000 a year, there is no Pishnayim. It's divided equally among the boys, but it's not Pishnayim. That's how we conclude Halacha L'Maisa and Shulchan Aruch. So for the next case, we're about halfway down on the page. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Ein Bechor Notel Pishnayim B'malveh. When there is a loan that was given out, and then the money comes back posthumously, so Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel says that there's no Pishnayim on the returned funds. So I lend someone $1,000. They give me back $1,000. No Pishnayim, divided equally among all the boys. Leman, says the Gemara, this makes sense according to nobody. If you want to say, like the sheet of the Rabbanon and the Brisa, that anything posthumous doesn't count, the Rabbanon who say that even if it's the investment account that the father left for the kids and there are gains, that there's no Pishnayim, all the more so money that's not in the property of the kids, pashut that there's no Pishnayim. And Elo the Rebbe, if you want to say that it's Rebbe who says that when it comes to Malveh that there's no Pishnayim, that doesn't make sense either. Elo the Tanya, Rebbe has a brisa, that's perfectly clear. Yarshu shtarcho b'chor notel Pishnayim ben b'malveh ben b'ribis. So Rebbe and the Rabbanon don't fit here at all. So how then could we possibly understand the brisa that says that when it comes to Malveh that there's no Pishnayim? It doesn't fit according to the Rabbanon, and it doesn't fit according to Rebbe. So the Gemara responds 2/3 of the way down. Lo'olam Rabbanon. Really, it's the sheet of the Rabbanon, the Itzrich. And we needed to teach this case, even though, really, by and large, it's obvious that they would not have Pishnayim with the return of the loan. Salka daita chamina, I might have thought, Malveh, that when it comes to a loan that's being returned, Kevan denokit shtara kamanda gavya damya. I might have thought that since the kid was holding the shtar, and the shtar says that Tex owes this family $1 million, well, because I have the shtar, maybe that's the equivalent of cash, and therefore it was in existence on the day of the Ptira of the father and part of the Yerusha, Kamash Malan, that we do not say that. So, and we conclude this way, Halacha L'Maisa also, this is quoted in the Rambam and quoted in Shulchan Aruch. If you have a document, an IOU, that you receive from a parent on the day of their death that is not considered cash, and it doesn't have a din of Pishnayim when the money comes in, the halva documentation is not the equivalent of cash. Very reasonable to have asked it, but that is why, according to the Rabbanon, this price exists. Shalchu mitam, they got a message from over there. What does that mean? That's the Babylonians talking and saying that this happened in Eretz Yisrael. What is it? What did they say in Eretz Yisrael? Bechor notel pishnayim b'milveh aval lo b'ribis. They said that a bechor taka can collect pishnayim when a loan comes in posthumously. Aval lo b'ribis. Let's say that the father lent out money to a goy b'ribis. He lent 1,000 or he lent 1,000,000, and the guy is supposed to pay back 200,000 extra, so he pays back 1.2 million. So there, lo beribis. Then we say that there is no, in that particular case, we say that there is no collection of pishnayim. So here too, this brisa from Eretz Yisrael is cryptic. Leman, ilema lerabanan. If you want to say that this brisa, which says that there's pishnayim by a malveh but not by ribis, is the rabbanon, the shita that never allows to collect posthumously, hashta shivcha deise birshuse amri rabbanon de lo shakil, the rabbis who say that even the case where the father left $1 million in a bank account for their kids, that the growth of that account posthumously is a zero. Obviously, the malveh miboya pashut, that if the loan money is not in hand, obviously it's not going to be pishnayim. So Elo the Rebbe, you want to say that this brisa, which says, again, let's review, which says that there is pishnayim by a halva, but there's no pishnayim by ribis, you want to say that's Rebbe? Ule Rebbe beribis lo? That's not true. Rebbe would say that by ribis that there's no pishnayim, that if the goy pays back $1.2 million on a $1 million loan, posthumously he pays it back. Rebbe says there is Pishnayim because Ve'atanya, 8-9 lines from the bottom. Rebbe Omer Bechor Notel Pishnayim Ben Milva Ben Meribis. So who is the author of this odd brisa from Eretz Yisrael that says Bechor Notel Pishnayim B'Malve Avalo Beribis? And the Gemara responds, Le'olam Rabbanan. Really, this one is also the rabbis. Umilve Keman de Gavya Damya. And here, unlike the Bavel version, here they say that the milveh is like it's collected. So we actually have a machlokes in brisas. Do we say that an outstanding loan of a father at the time of the father's patira is similar to cash and therefore subject to the rules of Pishnayim? Or do we say no, the documentation of an inbound loan is not cash and therefore there is no Pishnayim? Machlokes in brisas. Next, similar. Amrle Ravacha bar Rav Ravina. He says to him, Ikla Ameimar le'asrin v'darish. Ameimar, who was from Nahar Da, as we'll soon see in a moment, came to our locale and gave a drasha. What did Ameimar teach? Says the Gemara, what Ameimar taught was Bechor notel pishnayim b'malveh avalo beribis. He taught the same din as we saw earlier from Eretz Yisrael, that there is pishnayim with an outstanding loan that's paid posthumously, but not if what was paid back was ribis. Again, we're talking about ribis that's mutter by a goy. We're not talking about ribis be'isr. So Omar Le, Ravina says back to Ravacha bar Rav, who said that he heard this shiur from Ameimar. Omar Le, Na'ardoi l'ta'amayhu. The Na'ardoi people are l'shitasam. Ameimar said it, and guess what? Rav Nachman also said it. I learned this Gemara like 5 times. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here. They seem opposite, and they are opposite. The Amar, it should say to Amar Rav Nachman and not Rabba. Rabba is not from Naharda. Rav Nachman is from Naharda. So what Amar Le, what Ravina was saying back to Rav Acha bar Rav was the Nahardai people all agree with each other. They all learn the same Torah. They drink from the same water. So the Gemara says the Amar, again, switch Rabba for Rav Nachman. Gavu karka yeshlo. When there's karka, then there's pishnayim. Gavu maos einlo. But when it comes to money, we do not say that. The Rabba is what it should say. Amar gavu maos yeshlo, gavu karka einlo, and these are party lines. And then our Nardai people all agree to the same shita that a bechor is no tel pishnayim b'malveh, but not with ribis. The Gemara says, wait 1 second. Amar le Abaye le Rabba. Abaye says to Rabba, L'didoch kasha, and Rav Nachman kasha. I don't understand either of your shitas. One of you say that gavu karka, that there is pishnayim, but coins no. And Rabba said that if you collect coins, it's pishnayim, but if you collect karka, there is no pishnayim. So let's go through the questions. L'didoch kasha, Rabbi have a kasha against you, top of Kuf Chav Hey Amud Aleph. Maishna ma'oz dilo. Why is it that you say that when it comes to coins that there is no pishnayim? Because dilav hani mos shavak avuon. When it comes to coins, if I lend you, here I have a $5 bill in my hand. I lend you a $5 bill. When you pay me back, it's not the same $5 bill. Yerusha is from the tati. It's from the father. So therefore, if it's not the same bill, there's no pishnayim. So I understand. When it comes to money, maishna ma'os delo, dilav hani mos shavak avuon. Karkanami. If I lend you money, well, lav ha-karka shavak avuon. I can pay you back another karka. Doesn't have to be the same one. So that's question number 1. The ode, and as well, there's another problem with you, Rabba, says Abaye, and we're on the 4th line now. Mistaber taima debnei ma'arava di ikadim savta bizavna zvine. That if there were to be an older savta who were to buy this property, this would actually be a good sale. We're not going to fully understand this question until tomorrow. Just to foreshadow, look at the last line on this page. My savta de ahuda amar. What is that case? We're not going to fully understand this now. Let's just have a little bit of trust between one another that we'll explain it tomorrow. So that's kasha number 1 that Abaye has against Rabbah. And the Rav Nachman kasha as well. Maishna karka delo. Why is it that karka is not subject to pishnayim? The lava karka shavak avuon. Because when you pay me back karka, it doesn't have to be the same karka. So therefore, if that's true, most nami, lavhani most shavakavum. The same thing should be true by the money. If it's true by karka, it's certainly true by money. In short, Abaye is struggling to see the difference between karka and money. He holds, Abaye, at least from this questioning phase, he seems to hold that if you collect Pishnayim by one, you collect Pishnayim by the other. If you don't collect Pishnayim by one, you don't collect Pishnayim by the other. Yet both Rabbah and Rav Nachman held the opposite way, that if there is one by one, there isn't by the other. If there is by karka, there isn't by mos, and the other Shita held the opposite. So Abaye is really struggling with this. And furthermore, halfway down on Kuf Chav Hey Amid Aleph, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua, Yesomim shegavu karka b'chov asabiyin. If there were Yesomim who collected karka that was owed to their father, Bal Chov chozer v'gova mehen, and still the Bal Chov can go back and still collect from them, which is a very difficult shita according to Rav Nachman. Because Rav Nachman held that was Pishnayim, that was part of the Yerusha. Now you have the Balei Chov coming back and taking the property. That means it's not Yerusha. Can't have it both ways. So Amar Le, Rabbah says back to Abaye, lo ledidi kasha, v'lo the Rav Nachman kasha. Abaye, you have swung and missed. All of your questions are off base. Why? Because, says Rabbah, when Rav Nachman and I were sharing what we were thinking, it wasn't our opinions. Says the Gemara, Taima dibnei ma'arava ka'amrinan. All we were doing was trying to explain this enigmatic shita that came out of a brisa from Eretz Yisrael. We don't understand it either. We're with you. We're just explaining like them. V'lan lo sviralan. Great questions, Abaye. I hear you loud and clear, but we were not trying to explain for ourselves. We're saying the words that we don't agree with just to explain their shita. Tomorrow we'll pick up with the last line of Kuf Chaf Hey Amud Aleph, and Emir Hashem learn another blot and a half. Wishing you all a beautiful night.